I thought I might just introduce myself and have the panelists introduce themselves briefly. My name is Louise Roug. I'm the executive editor of HuffPost International, which means I oversee all our international editions. I live in New York, but am originally from Denmark. Lee, maybe you could quickly introduce yourself, Nikolaj, Michael, and Christina. Give two seconds about where you're coming from, and yeah.
Yeah, my name is Gammeltoft. I'm the founder and CEO of the digital media Heartbeats.dk. We work with video, podcast, and articles.
My name is Nikolaj. I'm a former TV host. I tell stories about technology.
My name is Michael. I'm the editor-in-chief of BT, which is a tabloid focusing totally on digital and focusing totally on mobile.
My name is Christina. I work for as CEO of a tech media house. We have 8 publications on technology and the intersections of business and technology. And I worked in omnibus media and news media and digital media for 20 years with the intersection of tech and business and journalism. I'm originally a journalist.
Great. So I thought, since we've got a lot of people here on stage, and this is really about the future, I would love to focus on like visions of the future, rather than maybe so much the past and what has happened. We all know that media has been disrupted, of course, by technology. Its business model has been completely changed. Its distribution model has been completely changed. But I'd love to talk about what does it look like in the future, and I'd love to get some good ideas about what does the future look like. And I'll start with you, Lee. How when you get really excited about the future, what's your vision? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, well, honestly, I think maybe I'm a little bit naive or an idealist or something like that, but I think that anything is possible. So most of the time, I'm mostly positive about the future. I need to be as a CEO of modern media, but I think the thing that is important for me to put emphasis on that is that content is free for everybody. It's accessible for everybody now. So it's easier for medias to actually, for niche medias to get the content out and distribute it to everybody. Of course, there's a lot of cons in that area as well. But I think it's important to say it's easier for us actually to get out there now and in the future.
Could you just for 2 minutes, because it's a really interesting story, of your startup and how it got started and the vision behind it?
Yeah, I started out, I'm a former radio host, and I started out making just a small app, a radio app, because I wanted to put more emphasis on alternative music. So it was just a small app. It was programmed by Mohammed in Gaza. He did that in a couple of weeks, and then I was flying. And we had like on-demand programs that people could listen to. And a year after, started the media platform that we know now, and actually didn't want to be a media that only focused on one format. We actually set the formats free, so the story is fitted to video, a podcast, sound, articles, whatever fits the story the best. And we also started out as a media with the business model of branded content. We work with commercial partners and have an agency as well. So yeah, we started, just doing everything in a new way.
Mm-hmm. So I love it. It's like very much about connecting, and it's a very sort of democratic, if you will, vision that you have.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Nikolaj, I know that you're a little bit more skeptical. When you look at the future, if you've got your positive hat on, what do you see as like the most exciting development for media and tech?
Well, I would say sort of a positive tip of an iceberg made of fear, and I would say that better content that is more nerdy, more specific for me, things that I like, that would be a positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll come back to the negative. Michael, when from where you're sitting, what's the positive future for BT specifically and more generally?
What gets me really enthusiastic is that it makes the future technology will make it possible for we are a huge media company in Denmark, but we are small and international. But it allows us in the future to become even bigger. I think in my past I actually was part of creating a 24/7 news channel, which is very successful today. But what I see is that the future technology, 5G, mobile phones, very simple infrastructure, allows us to compete with 24/7 news channels. Actually, I think it's the time within 2 or 3 years that we will actually be able to take over that position as a 24. Like, there is a TV2 News in Denmark, which is like CNN or Fox or MSNBC in the States. But they are all made very old-fashioned. They have all brought a huge pile of amount of money on infrastructure and equipment, and you can do it very much faster now. And the future will be live blogs combined of graphics, live video, text, which will be much more adaptable for people having an iPhone or a smartphone, and all the consumers will be on the smartphone. So for me, as a head of a media company, I think that's what's not to like about that?
So
it'll be great fun. 5G technology will improve everything.
So I know this is a very knowledgeable audience, but at least to me, can you explain 5G? Because I'm still struggling with it.
Well,
5G like beyond speed, like what does it really mean?
It allows you to be a broadcaster. It allows you to transport data 100 times of what you do today, and that means that it is no problem than transmitting live video in an extremely good quality on a very small phone. But you need to have the 5G technology all over, Denmark is one of the first countries where it will be rolled out at the end of this year. They are also building the masts right now. So within 1 or 2 years, 5G will allow you to do that. You can do virtual games on your phone. You can do interactive commercial. You can do a lot of new things, and we've just been started to dig into what it actually provides for us. But as a media, I think it allows us to compete with people who we will spend 10 million, and we can compete with people who has 120 million, which is leveling the competition.
But then, okay, I want to get to Christina as well, but doesn't that also open you up for disruption from the guy who has just the phone?
Well,
even more so than...
Of course. If we don't see this opportunity, if we don't take it, someone else will. And the opportunity right now for us is that nobody else sees this rightly, and the broadcasters who do 24/7 news doesn't see it at all, and they're totally focusing on being a streaming service, which is very, very difficult when you do news. But all of the major broadcasters are all focusing on their streaming services and not on their internet.
I think it's a good point, actually, because you can see it with what happened with podcast. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting here, but you can see what happened with podcast. We are, as a very small media in Denmark, the third biggest producer of podcasts in Denmark. And we are competing with big media that get like from 90 million a year and more than that from the state. And we have actually claimed the position as one of the biggest podcasters in Denmark, using almost no money compared to what they do. Using talent, experts, people that actually come in as freelancers and do it. We can do it because we have the technology for it. It's not expensive. So the agility of the media now becomes more and more important instead of just having the funding.
I want to come back to that. But Christina, what's your vision of the future, and what makes you excited when you think about the future?
Well, not that excited really, but but the point about the channels being more available. I mean, 10 years ago we would all focus on building our own CMS systems, so content management systems, for instance. We would spend all of our resources doing that. We don't have to do that anymore. And there's a realization, because we've come to a point where media has been challenged and the authority of the media and journalists have been challenged to an extent where we're back at focusing on quality journalism. It's a little bit like you said, Nikolaj. There's a focus on high quality journalism, and I think that's a positive coming out of this. Is actually, don't talk about the channels, because it's not. We've been through the motions of web first, digital first, then another. That didn't work, so we tried digital first again. And now that's not the point. Of course you're digital first. And of course we're out there. We are wherever. Because I bet if you ask the 5 of us sitting here, we'd all have different media habits. Some would have mainly podcasts, some would have mainly printed newspapers, whatever. Doesn't matter, you have to be where people are at. And that's not the issue anymore. The issue is back to basics, back to quality journalism.
Nikolaj, I see.
Well, I agree with the point.
Furiously.
I agree with the point that we have more quality journalism than ever, but also it seems that it doesn't matter.
True.
The world is going to shit, and so many. No, but there's so much public information about who's corrupt and this and that, and nothing still happens. And the basic problem I see in the way that the media works now is it's driven by attention. And attention is very easily measurable, which naturally pulls you towards doing the more spectacular. There's a true story, a good story, a relevant story, and a more spectacular story. This is happening all around us, and I see no cure for that.
Can I say one thing? Because I've thought a lot about that vis-a-vis images, because famously Facebook changed its algorithm back in the day to compete with YouTube. So on Facebook, videos got upvoted, if you will, right? Like they got preferential treatment. In response, all the media, pivoted to video. And of course, the way that you consume images and video, and especially on Facebook, it's a much more emotional kind of experience than maybe like reading text, which you actually process in a different part of your brain. Like that is kind of what you're talking about, right? Like it's the spectacular, it's the emotional rather than.
But hasn't it always been like that?
Yeah.
Hasn't it always been like when you do a form of journalism, you have to catch an audience, and you do what it takes to catch the audience. Either you do a magazine for nerds, or you do a broadsheet, or you do a radio program targeted at people who loves a special kind of indie music. You try to catch your audience. I'm an optimistic guy compared to Nikolaj. He's very pessimistic. I think the world is a fantastic place, and I think it's going even better.
You should come and live in America. It's great at the moment.
The thing is that there is so much more crap today. I just watched a YouTube video with 2 Danish YouTubers playing a game, and the combined viewing time was 65 years, right? That is 65 years people have not spent on your media or other quality media. But
who are you to decide?
I think
if maybe they had a thrill and a ball about that.
Yeah.
So why not? Don't be that old, Nikolaj. That young people. Oh no, they're really
One
bad.
thing
I think
Wait, sorry, Christina.
I think the central part of the problem right now is that we're facing up to. If someone would ask me 10, 11 years ago, if with the emergence of Facebook, what to do, I would have said, look, there's someone already built the freeway. We shouldn't build a freeway next to it. We should learn how to drive the freeway. Now it turns out that freeway is, not a good freeway. It's not one of those infrastructures we want to be in. And the problem is that we are now depending on that to actually get to our viewers. At the same time, that is the problem. So there's a relationship there that's negative and that we have to deal with. And I think the tide has turned, and that awareness is coming up. But I think that's not only a media problem; it's a democratic problem.
It's really interesting, and I'll get to you. But yesterday, I was talking to somebody in Danish media who said that within their media, they actually have a cap on how many views or how much audience they want to take from Facebook. Like they've capped it. To force a diversification of
you need to do that, but as a startup media, you need to get that. I mean, it's where do you start? It's the hen and the egg. We need the referrals from social media, but of course we also need to create our own audience. But I think for a media like Michael's, it's much more important that you don't get a lot of referrals from social media, because they will be gone in a minute if Facebook changes algorithms. But we rely on it somewhat because we are new. So we need to build our own audience, and talking about culture and lifestyle, it's not news. People maybe don't need it, so it's just still icing on the cake what we do.
Right. So it sounds like Michael and Nikolaj, you kind of represent slightly different poles here. And Michael, you think we get the audience, we get the media we deserve, and it's great, right? Like the media is really a reflection of what people want, and it's a democratic system, and so everything is wonderful. And Nikolaj, you're more skeptical around that. How do you see? I mean, isn't Michael right in a sense that it's just a reflection of what people want?
No, the tools being used to drag your attention into these machines are not democratic.
And the algorithms
Full stop.
are not democratic. Yeah.
Michael, I
think that what you're referring to is more or less like the social media, and a lot of people are on social media, but that's a fact. It's very difficult just to turn it back and say it's very bad, it's undemocratic, it's blah blah blah. Let's just face it like it is. And I think there is in the future, you will see huge media corporations go together to go away from Facebook, because what make people lie awake at night, which is the second question, is actually as boring as the business model. Because as Facebook, Google, the way they operate, the way they centralize everything, forces big media companies in Europe actually to go together and see, we'll have to make a way where we can actually operate and be a media company without Facebook. And for me, I think that is a good thing, and that will increase democracy. We're not in a time where democracy is expanding around the world, but it's not like that it's, we live in a free society. We've been used to democracy. Democracy is everywhere. This is the only model. This is the only way to live. So everybody else has to see the light in some future. But it's not as easy as that. But I'm kind of optimistic on it as well.
I think regarding technology, I'm pretty optimistic as well. Maybe also a little naive. In Denmark, there's different issues that we have to talk about when we talk about the media business and about democracy. Is that the big media are supported by the state, and the new media aren't in the same sum. I mean, it's difficult to get the money and the support from the state that the big media gets. I don't know how much money you get every year. Is it like 17 million or something like that? And for the modern media coming up that wants to disrupt the business, it's very difficult in Denmark because it's been funding the old media business for so many years. So that keeps me awake at night, not because I'm afraid of it, because I'm pissed off. Frustrated.
That's the only thing all the old media company can agree on. That is
that you love that money.
Place the money from the government to themselves and then keep all the startups away.
I do want to hear about your nightmares, all of you guys. We also have some questions, but maybe we can start with the nightmares and Christina.
Yeah, sure.
When you're feeling less sanguine about the world.
Well, I should say the business, but because I have P&L responsibility, but that's not really it. I was talking to this guy at a cybersecurity conference where. So he'd been walking around and sitting next to each other, and he says, look, so when I'm walking around here, the question that I pitch to these guys who are selling security solutions is, why would I buy them? I've never been hacked. And so he asks me, as a media, why don't you ask yourself the same question? Because that's the reason why a lot of people who are not in media, people who are in the media tend to find that, of course, people need professional, sound journalism, quality journalism. But a lot of people, especially young people out there, don't see that. They don't feel that way. They've never been hacked. They've never seen their democracy going to shite. And I just think that is my main concern. Can we convince that next generation that there is an actual need for curated quality journalism?
2 minutes each on your worst nightmares, and then I would love to get one question in from the audience. Michael.
I just touched it before. It's of course the business model, so I'll put that aside because it's an ongoing debate and an ongoing concern. The other part is what kind of journalism are we going to actually get in the future, since everything is measurable. When we do stories at BT, we measure it at 10 metrics. Quick exit. When did people just leave the story right away? How long? How far did they read the story? Did they end the article? Was it video? So if we're not really, really concerned and very focused, you'll get the same kind of journalism because you can measure everything. Before, when you read an article in a newspaper, you knew some would read it. You didn't know how they would read it. You didn't know how much they would read it. Now, when you do it on a mobile phone, you know everything. And you can change the beginning, you can change the end, you can do anything live, real time.
But how do you ensure, I'm sorry for interrupting, but how do you ensure that insight does not lead you down a path where you only serve the lowest common denominator?
That's a good question. It takes editors. But on the other side, I would say, what is the problem actually to do a story that people actually read to the end? There's a journalist who has spent 1 or 2 days on a story, made his best out of it, and he doesn't even know, does it work? Does the reader really like it? Now 60% down the story, I did something wrong because they all went out there. Maybe I should just down there do something different.
Okay, but I'm gonna because I really want to get to Nikolaj's nightmares. Like they sound like
there's so many.
I think we've been there. So I'd like to actually take one of the questions. Do you consider AI competition? One thing is in the whole curation. This is already happening when you see what you're served is an AI that serves that to you to boost engagement, and we can see what that does to democracies around us. Secondly, in the content creation, we are getting there. We're not there, but we're getting there. Just yesterday, a company called Lurbird, which is, imagine you have deep fake for video, but you also have a similar technology for voice. So if you're a person with a really nice voice that can really make a radio show, right? You will be able very soon to sort of license your good voice to someone else, which means that you can be on all the podcasts everywhere because you just write a script and the machine speaks the script in your voice. So it's happening. Endless,
yeah, it's
endless
also happening
good
with the written journalism, actually, that I think not too far away from here, there's a company that has bots sitting, I'm doing this, but this is how I write. I don't think the bots are doing
then
the
what
same.
is the point? Then what is the point? Why are we doing this? We're not doing this to make democracy better. We're doing this to catch people's attention and
We're
make
getting
money.
rid of all the boring stuff.
Yeah.
But
Normally,
the world is-
journalists were doing stories about soccer results, That's
The bots
bloody
could do
boring.
that, yeah.
Now a robot or
Yeah.
AI combined can do that, and they can spend the time doing a real journalistic story.
No, because
For
you will not
years
have them on the payroll. You'll kick these guys out.
No, I don't think so.
Wait,
I don't
Christina,
think
you
so
had
either.
Yeah, there are a few questions in here about subscription-based versus micropayment. I don't know who posted those questions, but a thing here is very interesting because we're mainly subscription-based media. I think that again, a few years ago, we said no way we can't do micropayments, but because it's not sustainable. But the thing is, what we're doing now is that we all need to look at our data ethics. And what we've done is that we've sort of made a challenge for ourselves to say, okay, no more of Facebook cookies, no more Google cookies, nothing. We only operate with first-part data because if someone's to do it, why not us? And I think that you will see a variation of pricing models because we used to be worried about cannibalization if we did micropayments, and not so much anymore because I think those two things can work side by side. You can both have the very loyal audience who will do subscription-based because they have a high need, and you can do micropayments, and you can actually do where you pay with your data as well. So not with data that will follow you anywhere on the internet, but if you pay with quality. So for instance, our audience, some of them would be developers. And we're quite happy to have their data about what are their skills, or take a few tests, so that we can push that on to employers who might want to get in touch with them for future employment. That would be worth money to us. And so I think that a mix is in the future.
Yeah, I think actually the mix of business models are very much in the future, that you can actually plug from whatever suits your media the best. I think that's very much in our future as a media, yeah.
On that note, I feel like we only scratched the surface, but it was great fun, and thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks.
Thanks.